Welcome, everybody. Welcome back to the Craic. Crackheads, how are you? Sorry about the time here. We were trying to get it going. We were trying to get Andy Stevenson in here to join us from lovely Dublin, just on the other side of the city from us. But it didn't go quite according to plan. But fear not, we are endeavouring to get the great Southside man himself, Mr. Stevenson, on the show. So let's hope he can get his technology up to scratch and we can actually get him on here. You know, that's what we're aiming for. Big weekend for Irish MMA. We've talked about it throughout the week on the ArielHelwani show. We talked about it with the boys in the back. Yesterday, I had a brief appearance. I said a lot. I was channeling my inner Phil O'Connor. I think I said 1,000 words in 2 minutes, which was a big achievement for me. But as I said, massive week PFL. It's Hughes v Nurmagomedov. I should have said Nurmagomedov v Hughes. We have the GFL draft, which is very, very exciting. And then, of course, we have, as you know, as the lads talked about yesterday, BKFC, which is very, very, very exciting. So we may not have Mr. Andy Stevenson, but we do have a man who was in Dubai, who was at the heart of an incident that seemed to break out today at the PFL weigh-in between, it looks like, as reports on Twitter are telling us, Irish fans and Dagestan fans. So I'm very keen to get his take on the whole thing. But first, let's welcome him in. It is Mr. Donagh Corby, my arch nemesis. He is just from down the road, but of course he is in the Middle East now. Donagh, how are you, darling?
Be on with you, Pizzi.
Yeah, I mean, for those who, I'll try and set the scene here. We're all on this call together, doing this, and we just get little images of Andy's frustrated face in the corner trying to get onto the show, which is absolutely fantastic. And thank you so much for bringing that up, Donagh. But tell me this, the mood in Dubai, it seems to have been upped quite significantly over the last few hours of this weigh-in. Something I did not expect to see. The weigh-ins look great, by the way. A really great atmosphere. I could hear the Irish fans, ole, ole, ole. You know, it's the kind of thing you want to see ahead of a big fight. But then, of course, we get a video, several videos of surface online. They're not very long videos. It looks like about 10 seconds. I'll call it a skirmish. You can see it on the screen there. The great Andy is putting up there for us because Jordan's on vacation again. But we see here, like, it looks like they're on the verge of kind of a fight starting. You can see some punches being thrown. Donny, you were there. There's no point in me summarizing what this video is. Tell me what it was like to be there today.
Yeah, look, so basically we're doing the weigh-ins. It's all good. It's all pretty much over. And we'll talk about the actual content of what happens at the weigh-ins later on in the show, I'm sure. But this incident, it finishes up, and basically, for a bit of backstory, it was supposed to be at this beach. That's where the event was supposed to be initially. And they basically, at the last minute, moved it. I believe it was an issue to do with filming, like the permit at the beach that they had. So they were allowed to film the open workouts there, but then a live broadcast was not allowed. So it was moved very quickly, very hastily this morning to Coca-Cola Arena just outside. And they had a huge amount of fans there, probably more than they expected, if I were to imagine. I mean, they're expecting 12,000 in there tomorrow night. They apparently 10,000 tickets sold, another 2,000 expected of walk-ups. Wow. So it was a big crowd. The atmosphere was a lot more than I was expecting. A lot of Irish and a lot of people, you know, support. I don't know. I don't know if you'd call them Dagestani or just like Muslims in general, because they're local to the area. Like Emiratis would support a member of the Nurmagomedov family. And yeah, basically afterwards, you know, everyone's singing, everyone's chanting. Basically all the chanting was started by the Irish, Hughesy, and ole, 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 all that stuff. And then the Dagestanis would boo that. They wouldn't necessarily sing in opposition or anything, but they would just boo it. And yeah, basically it looked like tempers flared a little bit. And another little wrinkle was that basically, because of the logistical issues that come from the venue change, they didn't have a huge amount of space in the pen where the weigh-ins were actually going on. And a lot of people got moved out. So you'd seen Nahom Weddy was out there. Dave Roach was out there. They weren't involved in this incident, but like, you're talking important people. Like Nahom Weddy is cornering Kenny Makwan on the main card. Dave Roach is cornering, I think, 3 fighters on this card. So these are important people to the show, but they're not in there. And yeah, I guess a couple of the people were, I think we were saying Paddy McCrory and Reese McKee were involved there. So yeah, just something kicked off, and It looked like maybe one or two punches were thrown. But when I tell you, like, if people are watching and they're seeing these clips on social media, they want to blow it up. It was like 10 seconds worth of something. And it was way more people taking out their phones and running towards a fight than the actual fighting.
That's the day and age that we live in, Donagh Corby. I'm actually glad to hear that because my initial fear was, oh no, this is going to be another story in the Irish tabloids about MMA. I spoke to some people on the ground over there. Everyone seems to be safe. Like everyone's telling me it dispersed very quickly. No one's hurt or anything like that. Like they didn't need to call in the SWAT team to get this sorted. Like it all kind of naturally dispersed very quickly.
What I would say is on the ground here, it has done. It has had about a out of 10. I would say the impact it's had on anything has been about a 1 or a 2. Like we almost immediately were back doing other stuff at that stage. Paul Hughes, I believe, did another appearance, met with I think one of the one of the sheiks afterwards in the venue where it all happened. So they weren't exactly getting. It wasn't a situation where they went, "Oh, we need Paul out of here. Oh, it's unsafe." Like he went straight back out afterwards. I think he had gone backstage for something. And Usman obviously isn't the kind of guy who sticks around and meets with dignitaries or anything like that. But Paul is that kind of guy, and so he went and met with some of the Emirati important people right afterwards. So really on the ground here, this is not something we're talking about too much in the hotel here in Dubai.
Good. No, I'm glad to hear it. I wouldn't say PFL mind though. All the same, these videos. Look at how much these guys hate each other. Peter Carroll, you're wrong. You are wrong, mate. There is Irish people around the country are like, yeah, come on, Ireland.
I'll tell you what.
Our storied rivals, Dagestan. They're doing it again.
Yes, that famed rivalry between two countries who are competitive when it comes to the amount of athletes they've had, be UFC champions and be top of the leaderboards. It's but there's a huge Irish support. There's a huge Irish support here. Ryan Curtis is out here. He wasn't at the weigh-ins today, but he's out here, which is sick. And you're seeing a lot of the expats are coming out to support, and a lot of people who have flown. I met people today who had flown for this fight. So huge atmosphere, and it really is feeling like a massive fight.
Yeah, and we'll talk. You mentioned talk about the weigh-in aside from that whole issue, and I'm very curious to hear about that because we'll probably show a video of this now, just in terms of a face-off that Hughes and Nurmagomedov had earlier in this week, and that really got me in. I was obviously already very excited having covered Paul since his pro debut, to see him get to this moment where he's fighting for a world title. And as amazing as that is, sometimes you just want to see the two guys together. And we got this footage of them earlier in the week, and immediately they're exchanging words. Usman's telling him, "I'd go now," all this kind of stuff.
Fine.
Here we go.
Let's go.
Thank you, Andy.
We can do it here.
Few days.
If you want, we can do it here.
Oh, I love it. They are two really confident dudes. They don't want to look away. This is so funny. The competition.
Let's go.
We can do it here.
Few days.
Usman looking at the ground like to check how much damage I'm going to do myself.
Bro, we're fighting in 4 days. You focus on that day.
I'm focused all day, every day.
You're looking past
Doesn't
me.
matter.
You're looking past me.
Who are you?
Exactly.
That's
a great line. That is a great line.
We'll see what?
That's your mistake.
Hello.
That's amazing. I want to ask you, Donagh, like, what I love about this is, so we know as Irish guys, we've been following Paul for a very long time. Like, this is a moment. It's like an odyssey to get to this moment for Paul Hughes. All the things he's been through with the handbrakes, the situation with Cage Warriors, free agency coming along, all this stuff to get to this world title situation. But I love Usman looking at him like the audacity of you, like what are you, like that's what I feel when I look at him. Like he's like, are you serious? Like, are you really saying this stuff? Like he's like, I feel disrespected by your confidence. That's what I feel. Usman is giving me. Tell me what you've made being around him this week, because he seems quite frosty, which I like, which I think helps build a fight.
I've not said 2 words. I've seen him in the hotel. Oh, Paul, good luck. Nothing. Not interested in what I have to say at all. Does not want my luck, my well wishes in the slightest.
We have that in common, me and Usman.
Yeah, his team seemed great, but Yeah, I think what's so fascinating about it as well, we were noting this when we were on the bus back, was it's almost the inverse of the first Ireland versus Dagestan, in that it's really the Dagestani who's, wanting to fight on the street and cause like and talking a lot of smack, and making it making it more of a grudge match than it maybe is. And then it's the Irish guy who's like, all right, let's focus on Saturday. Let's all be humble here. It's a completely different scene to the one in Las Vegas in 2018. And I think it will probably end a whole lot less ugly, I'd imagine, as well, regardless of what the result is. So yeah, I thought, look, Paul looks confident. He looks great. Usman looks confident. He looks good. I would say, I struggle to imagine that what happened on Saturday night to his brother, and mainly the fact that he couldn't be there, was probably very upsetting for him. And I wonder how that will affect. He insists that it doesn't affect him at all. He insists that it's not an issue, but these are guys that do not lose. Khabib never lost. Usman has never lost, and now Umar has lost this one. And I think it has to be somewhat playing on his mind. So yeah, very very interesting fight week, very tetchy build up, and certainly you're seeing a bit more of a feud now between Usman and Paul.
Yeah. Do you think that this means more to the people in Dagestan, this Ireland thing? Like, because I'm looking at the footage and I'm like, as I said, I'm liking how Usman's carrying himself with this kind of like the cheek of this guy showing up here to try and take my belt. But do you think they're kind of like, they all think that these guys are, training for the last 7 years to avenge McGregor's, like 6 years or whatever, to avenge McGregor's loss? Like, he is so central to Irish existence that this is all this guy's been doing for years. And maybe that's why he's like, because that's how it's been presented, like Dagestan v Ireland, right?
Yep.
Do you think that that's what they're saying? Like, they do see a correlation between Paul Hughes and that initial fight with Khabib and Conor?
Yeah, most definitely. I think so. And I think, I mean, look, if Kavanagh was more available, I know that John is currently, or he was at the inauguration. I'm not sure if he's in Dubai yet, but I think he's going to be cornering a couple of the guys. I think if anyone who was involved in the first fight were here, it would be a little bit different. We haven't seen much of Khabib yet. I know he's in Dubai as well, but even Islam, I know he wasn't involved, but he was, around. Obviously, there's not going to be any Conor. He's going to be at BKFC in Philadelphia. You're not going to get, of course, you wouldn't get a Dylan Dennis type. He wouldn't be there. No one, like any of the central figures on that night that made it so aggravated. None of them are really around. So there's a bit of a disconnect, but at the same time, it's still, there is still definitely something of a vibe that, like, yeah, these guys, I think also, like, you would forget that Conor was very disrespectful to Dagestan and to Khabib and to their people. And so I would imagine that I'd imagine that they probably don't take too kindly to that kind of behavior either.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Like, do they think that, Hughes believes all this stuff that was said, this outlandish stuff that was said in October 2018? I wanted to ask, in terms of, like, we've talked about Usman and how he's presenting himself. Paul has seemed elated. Like, he seems like to have this weightless kind of energy to him, like, where he's like, this is what is meant to happen. I am here to complete my dream. As I said to GC and New York Rick yesterday when I was on Boys in the Back, like, you can factor a lot of things going against Paul Hughes here in terms of, it's in Dubai. I've been to fights in Abu Dhabi, Habib fights, and as you said, like, the locals there are going to support fellow Muslim guy. Like, they're going to follow the Nurmagomedovs. Like, they're huge figures in that part of the world. So you'd say that's huge, so that's playing against Paul. And then the bookies have him as a 7-2 underdog as well, which is a huge line. But as much as, like, that reads on paper like Usman's going to win, I also think that lights a fire under Paul's arse. Like, I think this is exactly what he likes. He said to me before the AJ McKee fight, he was like, "Oh, thank God I'm the underdog again. I haven't been in this situation for my whole career, pretty much." He seems to really relish, like, "Oh, you guys don't know what I'm about to do to this guy."
Oh man, yeah, no, I think so. And I think he's certainly, like, he's just someone who, look, the promotion love him. He's embraced this whole thing so well. And I'll be honest with you, I've had these behind the scenes, not on the record conversations with your Pete Murrays and your Don Davises and Dan Hardys, people like that. And they've all been saying, like, we really wouldn't have gone this direction with Paul Hughes if we had a choice, right? Like, he was the one who forced them to say, right, no, second fight, I want AJ McKee, because that's not something that the old school Bellator did, right? Like, I saw your article this week where you talked a bit about, you know, the old Bellator promotional tactic of kind of bringing in someone who's tangentially got a tie to Conor McGregor and then having them fight what a casual fan might call a bum or might call a tomato can, and, you know, build them up that way.
Your words,
then,
not mine, Donagh. That wasn't in my article, mate.
But, you know, and then, you know, that was the thing. Whereas Paul Hughes is very different. Like, he got signed as a super prospect with essentially no connection to Conor. And actually, prior to his first fight in Dublin, there was zero. Like, they weren't even following each other.
Frosty.
On social media,
it seemed frosty. Yes.
Yeah, it wasn't great. So I think it's obviously been massive, and he basically he won that fight in Dublin. It didn't even necessarily. I think he would admit himself, not even his best performance, and he immediately was like, "Yeah, AJ McKee, Usman Nurmagomedov, those are the names I want." And everyone is saying, "Yeah, we wouldn't have necessarily gone there if it wasn't for him." But he loves it, and he's in great form, and he looks great. He seems good. I mean, he seemed like, I thought he came out the better of that exchange there in the face-off video that you saw. Like, he just looked more comfortable with it. I mean, it always looks a bit weird when someone is calling to, like, let's do it now. That always seems to be like someone with you know, a little bit of a different energy. And obviously that would have been filmed Tuesday, I think. So early in the fight week, right after Umar had lost. So he's probably pissed off anyway. So yeah, I think, yeah, very fascinating times. And I think Paul is looking great. And by the way, I pick him for this fight.
Oh yeah, sure, mate, sure. Anyway, let me. We have some breaking news on the show. Thank you so much to our brilliant producer Andy. If Jordan was here, this wouldn't have happened. He wouldn't have been able to do this. But because Andy is here, we have managed to secure Mr. Andy Stevenson. Here he is. It's a big moment for Andy coming on the Craic again, and we managed to get it done. Andy, your technology is terrible, but you're a lovely lad. How are you getting on?
I don't know what kind of north side trickery is going on here, but they've been trying to keep me out. I had to change laptops then. My microphone didn't work. I see the chat saying L Corby, L Carroll. And they're saying, W Andy, we want Andy to come. So I'm here. I'm bringing the heat. I don't know what these two idiots have been talking about the last while. Something about, I don't know, Petey's probably talking about Conor McGregor. Donagh, I think I see a PFL hat there somewhere. But look, we're here. Thank you. Thank you to the great Andy. Great name, great producer. And I'm just grateful to be here.
Well, I am grateful. I'm grateful for you to be here as well. I know Donagh is disgusted, but personally, me, I am very, very happy. Andy, there's a feeling, and you can tell me if I'm wrong, but there's a feeling that Irish MMA, they need a poster boy to emerge of this new group. Ian Garry, very, very, I'd say Ian and Paul are pretty much neck and neck in terms of vying for that position right now. Do you think with a win that Paul Hughes can become that guy, a new face for Irish MMA?
Of course he can. We've been crying for this for so long, where the carrot has been dangled in front of Irish MMA, where, you know, let's be real, the vast majority of people who follow Irish MMA today hadn't a clue what it was before the first wave of Irish fighters in the UFC. And then there was this great expectation of, oh, sure, of course it's going to happen again. There's going to be, you know, 25 different UFC champions, and it was entirely unrealistic, as we've talked about ad nauseum at this point. Paul is the guy who can change it, who can finally take Irish fighters in Bellator/PFL to the next step. We've never had a champion in that regard from Ireland. Of course, Ian Garry is doing his thing in the UFC, and he looks like he's well on his way to becoming a UFC champion in time, but he hasn't had the connection. Again, we've talked about it a lot. He has not had that connection with Irish fans. I think it's improving, but it's not to the same level that Paul Hughes can kind of go out here. We're seeing the support that he has brought throughout his Cage Warriors run. We're seeing the reaction and the reception that he got in Dublin upon signing and making his Bellator debut there. And of course, now we're seeing that fans are traveling to Dubai to support him in what seems like waves. There seems to be a raucous atmosphere out there in Dubai, where Donagh is right now. And I do think that he can take Irish MMA to that, not quite to the same heights. That's completely unrealistic, but I do think that there could be a good story, a good fighter, and a good personality to get behind who represents Ireland and Irish people.
And by the way, I'm seeing a lot of people in the chat talking about Andy's microphone. No, he is just that annoying. That's all it is.
That's
It's not his microphone quality. You're just hearing a voice that is really like nails on chalkboard.
Listen, mate, I've got two microphones here. One of them works apparently, and I'm doing my best. I love you, chat, though.
That's all I can do.
Chat.
It's actually really encouraging to hear, like from an Irish perspective, that fans have travelled for this. Like from what Donagh describes, is a load of people showing up. I know Paul actually puts a lot of effort into this himself. From his Cage Warriors day, I think you guys will remember. He always had that Facebook page, or was it an Instagram page? It was like
Yep.
big news tours,
Buses.
and he organised buses, everything like that. And they've done it for this event here, and I think that's really really cool. Because it is it's a trek. Dubai, expensive trip for Irish people, and to
Mhm.
see them show up and be that vocal at a press conference where we assumed that Usman would be the heavily favored guy on the ground in Dubai. I mean, that's really promising, isn't it, Donagh?
Oh, definitely. And well, look, there's also a lot of Irish expats here. Like, there's a lot of guys who I know from school. Like, Kenny and I are from, the same area as UPC in D15. And he's telling me, oh, this guy from school is going to be there. And this, like, people we know from like secondary school who like have now lived in Dubai and, might be out on different work stuff or whatever. So a lot of that, obviously, you put the name Nurmagomedov on a poster in the Middle East, and people will show up, whether it's, even if it's Saeed Nurmagomedov, is not even related, I'm sure people would still go to those fights. And I think, yeah, it's a massive atmosphere. I mean, like, I couldn't believe what I saw today, to be honest with you. There was a couple of hundred people there, in a new, like, in a location that had just been announced, a new location, and middle of the day as well. Huge atmosphere. And I think there's, like I said, 12,000 expected tomorrow. And I think Usman's rattled by it. I'll be honest with you. Now, maybe that's just my Irish bias talking, but if you saw his little post thing interview with Dan Hardy, he kind of took the mic off Dan and was like, hey, you people out there, that you guys can chant what you want, but there's 100 Dagestani fighters here and you could try saying it to our face. Actually, if you want to talk about that brawl, maybe instigated by Usman Nurmagomedov telling the Dagestanis there to fight with the Irish people during his interview with Dan Hardy. I forgot about that part. But yeah, he's like, it's great. And it's such a great story. And I think it's great because Paul is so likable and Usman is so much more villainous than Khabib. Like, he's so much more naturally easy to, like, Khabib is actually, you find yourself quite liking Khabib, I think. I definitely found like it at the time, it was tough to be like, this guy's the most evil guy in the world. We hate him. Like, Floyd was easy to hate. And I think even Eddie Alvarez could get a bit annoying at times. Like, not really, but a little bit.
This isn't just a list of fighters you don't like, Donagh, all right? Like, this is a different conversation.
Yeah, don't like this
He's
guy.
an asshole.
An
Tom
asshole.
asshole.
But yeah, but I think that Usman is really the perfect villain for Paul Hughes. And yeah, great atmosphere today, and really exciting. I think he may, hopefully, I hope he's a bit rattled.
Yeah, Andy, I stopped myself from clutching my pearls yesterday when I was on the Boys in the Back show, and they said I think everyone would agree that this is a one fight card. I could imagine as the Irish focused journalist here with three other Irish guys on this card. Kenny, as Donagh mentioned earlier, John Mitchell's on the card as well. Nate Kelly, a brilliant prospect from Finglas, a guy who I feel Nate is in a situation where he wants to be counted among the Ian Garys and Paul Hugheses. And I think he's in a situation where he's in against a guy from Dagestan. It's Ireland v Dagestan, guys. He's in against a guy from Dagestan. A really tough test. Tell me, are the lads right? Is it only a one fight card? Hughes and Nurmagomedov, you may as well just have the thing off up until then.
The disrespect towards the, we've got a humongous card here full of incredible Irish talents. As you mentioned, Nathan Kelly riding an 11 fight win streak. This guy lost his first two fights as a professional, was battling some mental health issues, was battling struggles with drugs, which he came out about later on. And since then, he's gone on this absolute tear. 11 fights, 9 finishes, 11 wins. He's 7-0 inside the Bellator/PFL cage. I mean, this guy's primed to, if he can, overcome this test, to announce himself as the next, let's say, Paul Hughes, the next Irish guy to put his hand up and say, you know what, I want to be in those tournament mixes. I want to be fighting for titles. Of course, we've got the other title fight between Nemkov and Tim Johnson. Who's not excited for that one?
It's actually disgraceful they said that, really. Now you're saying there's another title fight in GC and Rick saying this.
Come on,
it's awful.
blockbuster.
Can't believe it.
We've got John Mitchell, the local boy, both to Ireland, but also to Dubai. Going to bring the waves, the absolute waves of fans to this fighting against another guy. And yeah, we've got some
another guy.
We've got some brilliant fights. No, on a serious note, though, the Kenny Mukunwana, this guy has been he's been struggling to get a fight for ages. He left Bellator, couldn't
That's
get a
right.
fight anywhere. Signed with Aries, never came to fruition, and now he's kind of been, he's given this opportunity. But really, like if you look who's going in against here, Ibrahimov, he's the guy, right? Who's his brother plays for Man United, if I
Two
recall.
of his
How about
brothers.
this?
Two
How
of
about
his
this?
brothers.
Three brothers, one in the youth team.
Not one,
I think
not
2 or 3.
three.
I think there's one who's like on the verge of the first team, 16-year-old lad.
Is it not 2 brothers and him, which is the 3
Oh,
brothers?
that could be it. But I think but how about this? He had trials at Man
He
City
has
before he
just
went
signed
to
for Man United.
No, yeah, I wish. But he had trials at Man City before deciding to go to MMA. And I think if you look at who's the next Khabib, who's the next big star out of that region in Dagestan, I think Ibrahimov has a good shout, but he's got a very tough test ahead of him against our boy from D15, Kenny.
I would have said the other way around. I would have said that the way they're building Ibrahim, who lives in Manchester, very tough to be fighting out of Dagestan when you're from Manchester. But against Kenny, I thought that was the tough draw. Like when I look at all the Irish fighters, and fair play to Kenny for taking this fight, because the way they're talking about Ibrahim is like the same way as they're talking about Doumbé early on, Dakota, like Hughes. Like this is the way they're talking about this guy. This guy is an uber prospect. Obviously, when you become a family tree full of players of that caliber, so many of that caliber, like your genetic pool is obviously insane. And then you're put up against Kenny. Do you not think that's the toughest one for the Irish charges on the night? Well, Hughes, take away Hughes and Usman.
Hughes definitely is the toughest draw, but I would say that Kenny, the other 3, Kenny's got the toughest draw. Now, I will say Nathan Kelly was originally slated to fight Hassan Magomed Sharipov, obviously the famed Zabit Magomed Sharipov's younger brother. That never came to fruition. Obviously, he ended up pulling out of that fight, and Nathan got the replacement. But like when we think of, again, looking at it from the Irish angle here, the whole conversation around Bellator and that Irish run for the space of about 5 years was the SPG bias, the matchmaking. Well, if you look at this one, Kenny Mukanwana, SPG Ireland fighter, he's certainly not getting an easy test here. I do think that's one of the tougher ones of the draw. The way they seem to be kind of prepping or positioning this card is the prelims. I spoke with, as I was clutching my own pearls earlier on today, I spoke with the member from of the PR team from PFL, and the way they were kind of saying it was that the prelims are essentially angled towards the MENA kind of area, the Middle East, North Africa. So it's a lot of
that's where the guy John Mitchell is fighting is from. Suhail, he was on the MENA tournament.
Yeah, so like the conversation I was having was around this. We're seeing brawls taking place and kind of a lot of animosity ramping up, and you've got John Mitchell kind of on the corner of the Dagestan fighter. Seems like a pretty terrible idea to have him in the same changing room. But
yeah, hang on, I want to ask you about that. I saw this Andy's podcast, The Old Triangle, absolutely brilliant, especially for Irish MMA consumers. It's the best show you can listen to. I saw the clip earlier this week, just so we can give the audience an idea of what's going on here. So all of the Irish guys are in a dressing room together, and John finds out like, no, you're actually going to be in with the Dagestan lads. Surely that's been remedied. Andy, can you please tell us it's been remedied?
I don't think it has been remedied, but I do think that it's not. I'm gonna take PFL at their word, and I don't think it's as big of a deal as I initially thought. Well, still, I think it's a bad idea. John Mitchell is a Cork fighter. He's from Cork in the southwest of Ireland. He has been living in Dubai for the past 4 years or so, training out there. And look, he's got a big fan base out there too. There's a great community kind of behind him. They see him as one of their own. So you have the prelim section of the card is stacked with these kind of Middle East based fighters. John is kind of grouped in with those, and so he's sharing a dressing room for the prelims. Now what I'm told is and what you will notice on the card is that all of the Dagestani fighters are on the main card and up. So the thought process there is that, well, they're not actually going to cross paths. So yes, he is in the same dressing room as the one that they will be in, but they won't be in there at the same time. Now, I sincerely hope that is the case, considering the scenes that we've seen so far, because I don't think that's a good idea whatsoever. But perhaps it's not quite as drastic or hopefully it won't go too badly there. It should be okay.
Good. That I'm happy that you're optimistic. You're like, after putting this all over the web, we need to be disgusted about this.
I called him idiotic.
Okay, fair enough.
Yeah.
Corbs, you've been there. Is there any fights that really have a lot of metal over there? Like when you're there, you're like, geez, I can't wait to see these lads going on. Maybe one that's flying under the radar.
Yeah, I mean, look, we did kind of talk about the Ibrahimov and the Kenny fight. I mean, that's a big one. I think Nathan Kelly's fight is big too. I mean, I think one fight that's kind of interesting is this Vadim Nemkov one. In that, when I spoke to Don Davis a couple of weeks ago, obviously he was supposed to fight Corey Anderson, and Don Davis pretty much said to me on the record, he was like, yeah, he was afraid to fight Corey Anderson and wanted an easier fight, and he went for, he wanted to fight an easier opponent, so we got him Tim Johnson. And I mean, if I'm Tim Johnson, I'd be very offended by that I'm considered a way easier opponent than light heavyweight Corey Anderson. And that was interesting. But then we're talking to Pete Murray this week, and all of a sudden he's saying, well, if Nemkov wins, maybe Francis Ngannou for him. So that sounds like they've got plans in place. And I think Francis he might be due to be there tomorrow night, or maybe he is not now going to be in attendance. But if he was there and Nemkov wins, they might do a little face-off or something. But that seems to be like that was the direction. Like, Pete Murray doesn't say things unless he means them. And I think like he's not like a guy who really he's not a guy who's like making fantasy matchups, right? That's like, he's not as much of a fan of the sport as Don Davis is, or I mean, certainly not a Dan Hardy. So I think if he is mentioning that, then that's something that has been discussed. So yeah, I guess this Vadim Nemkov one will be interesting. But Jays, I don't know. Tim Johnson's a big puncher too, so we'll see.
And you know what? I'm so happy to hear you saying that, because we were only talking about yesterday how I think one of the big Achilles heels for PFL is the fact that sometimes they don't do a good job of teasing what's coming down the line, particularly with champions. Like with Dakota right now, kind of feels like at a loose end. She's climbed to the top of the mountain. What's next? We've been talking about Liz Carmouche. People don't seem to be too excited about that, but I would love to see that, like, just to whet the appetite for Francis fight potentially down the line. Obviously, the first time it happened, didn't go down so well that night after poor old Ryan Bader took a beating from Ferreira and then he wouldn't do the face-off. So I'd really like to see that happening. We better have a talk about how this fight will actually go with Paul Hughes and Usman Nurmagomedov. I gave my feelings yesterday on the show with the lads. So, Andy, we'll start with you. What do you think we're going to see from Paul Hughes tomorrow against Usman Nurmagomedov, and why is it that you believe he can get the job done and take that O from Khabib's cousin?
I think we're going to see the best Paul Hughes we've ever seen. And the reason why I say that is not just because I'm Irish or because I've been covering Paul Hughes. It's every single time that he has had to step up a level, he has delivered. When it comes to his Cage Warriors title fights, when it comes to the fight that he had most recently against AJ McKee, a fight in which, you speak to his coaches after the fact, they said it was a terrible camp, it was a terrible weight cut, or no, sorry, not a weight cut, it was a terrible due to illnesses and things like this. Yet still he delivers, and I think that Paul Hughes, his entire career has kind of been building towards this moment. He's not, this is not a fight where it's an Irish puncher going in against a well-rounded Dagestani grappler who can also strike. They're an incredibly high-level fighters who are very evenly matched, I would say, who are very skilled in all areas. Like, Irish fighters are not known for our grappling, but throughout Paul's career, he has always been a very solid wrestler. He's always been a very solid grappler with finishing abilities via submissions. And I really think that we're just going to see two of the best fighters in the world going toe-to-toe tomorrow. Now, that's not to discount at all Usman Nurmagomedov, who is literally dangerous everywhere. They've built this fight as this Ireland versus Dagestan 2. If we go back to Conor versus Khabib, essentially it was a striker versus a grappler for the most part. Of course, they can both do, Conor can wrestle. Conor can he's got jiu-jitsu the same way Khabib is striking. Of course, we saw with the knockdown. But this is like the evolution of that, in that they're entirely well-rounded. It's not a puncher. It's not a striker versus a grappler. It's two high-level elite mixed martial artists, and I do think that we're going to see the best Paul Hughes tomorrow night. Now, can he get it done? 100%. Will he? I don't know. I back him. I think that he will get it done, but I'm not certain. Like, Usman Nurmagomedov is so good at fighting, and there's no reason to believe that, tomorrow night is going to be the night that he falters. That's not the case here. But I do think that we're going to see the absolute best version of Paul Hughes. And I do think that there is something to what Donagh was saying. The energy that each are carrying into this fight, Hughes knows that he's going to have to go through hell. He knows just how good Usman Nurmagomedov is. Usman has not shown the same level of respect at all. He's been outright dismissive. He seems to be angered at the fact that people are even talking about them in the same breath. And I do think that's a very dangerous way to approach a fight. Now, maybe it's all part of the build-up. I don't think so. I think that's him being sincere. And I think that could be his downfall tomorrow night.
He's doing a lot of codes, perhaps, all this kind of stuff. Weigh in, Andy. What is your pick? Give us, you said, I think he's going to do it. He might not do it. Who knows? Give us a fucking pick, Andy.
I said this on the L Triangle earlier this week, and I'm going to stick by it. Paul Hughes, round 3, knockout.
Ooh. Donagh Corby. Now that we got Andy Stevenson off the fence there, who are you picking?
All right, let's see here. So let's talk about Usman Nurmagomedov a little bit. Obviously, great fighter, undefeated, and clearly has skills to pay the bills. The issue is we have not seen him tested against like top level opposition. Obviously, he beat Benson Henderson. 2023 Benson Henderson, not exactly the same win as maybe a 2013 Benson Henderson might have been. So if you look at his record in Bellator, Mike Hamill wins by decision. Manny Murrow, he knocks out. Patrick Piatila, household name, Chris Gonzalez, and then he wins the belt from Patricky Pitbull. That's Patricky, not Patricio, who had won the belt vacated by his brother against Peter Queally, if you recall, in the rematch there. Then Benson Henderson again, 2023 Benson Henderson, who I think immediately retired afterwards, or maybe had one more fight and then retired. Then he had a no contest with Brent Primus. He beat Brent Primus, but it was overturned because of the drugs test, which apparently was fine. So then Alexander Shabley, which is probably his best win.
Yeah.
I just don't know. Like, is there any of those guys that you would back to beat Paul Hughes right now? Like, is there any of those guys who, if they fought Paul Hughes on Saturday night, you think they'd beat?
No.
I don't think so. I would be surprised. Like, I think maybe Primus would give him a competitive fight. I think obviously Shabley would maybe give him a competitive fight, but I think Paul Hughes is the toughest opponent he will have faced. And look, I mean, you could have said the same about Conor when he fought Khabib as well. I mean, you could have said Khabib's record outside of maybe a couple of sort of trademark wins. Like, he had won the belt as well from Ala Quinta, right? Because of the cancellations of the Tony Ferguson and Max Holloway fights. And he was not a super active fighter. Like, Usman's a bit more active than Khabib was at the time. So I think personally, I'm coping and seething about all this. I really want Paul Hughes to win. So I hope that's the result. But yeah, I guess if you run through the record, I think Paul Hughes shouldn't have too much necessarily to worry about. And also, I do think this Umar thing has to be playing a factor. Like, I do think these guys don't know how to lose. Like, these are not guys who lose generally. So the fact that he wasn't able to be there, the fact that he had to watch his brother go through all of that from a distance and then has to go and fight himself the following week under all this pressure with all this media scrutiny, I think that it might have an effect as well. Again, do I think that? Do I hope it? Probably hope it. But yeah, Paul gave out to me. He came first thing after the AJ McKee fight. He comes up and goes, "Proved you wrong," because of something I said on the Craic. So I'm picking Paul Hughes to win. I want him to win, and I think he will.
I think PC's having some audio issues right now. This is live. Great, some great lives. Donagh, how are you?
Yes, look.
What do you think about that pizza guy?
Live broadcasting
Great guy,
can go this way sometimes. So yeah, I'm now your host of the
Sorry,
Craic.
I'm back.
Oh,
I'm back.
okay.
Thank God.
The second I take over.
Everyone must have been panicked. I accidentally hit a button on my mic that Frank's always giving out to me about. Sorry, Andy. Apologies, world. What I was going to ask you guys about is we have a few moving situations within the UFC. I am trying to show you guys off to the world. Like, it's not just Irish MMA these guys can speak about. They can speak about it all. They can speak about Arman Tsarukyan and potentially him not getting his fight again. This is something that was on earlier on in the week. Obviously, we've got a lot of previews to do. But Dana, very annoyed, it seems, that Arman did not fight at UFC 311. Arman seemingly accepting that I might not be the next guy who will have to will fight for the title. Andy Stevenson, tell me, how do you feel about this? We see a graphic up on the screen. Andy's given us here. He's not getting the title shot. That means he's going to have to fight his way back to the title. That is what Dana White said in reaction to Arman Tsarukyan's 11th hour withdrawal. Seemed like the natural guy to fight next. Here's Arman. I agree with Dana White. Once my back heals, I'll be ready to prove I'm the true #1 contender by taking on anyone they put in front of me. Andy, do you feel as though Arman is just kind of accepting his fate at this stage? Like, what good is it going to do me to protest this decision that Dana White has already made?
Yeah, I mean, to be honest, it's probably the best move he can make. I would say, like, it's entirely unfair of, like, MMA is unfair. Like, the UFC is oftentimes unfair. Dana, basically said, without outright saying it, that he didn't think, that he should have not fought. I think he believes he should have fought, and he kind of gave a non-answer to whether whether the doctors had cleared him or not. But I mean, what are you supposed to do when you're in Arman Tsarukyan's shoes? Like, they're clearly pissed off at him, or at least Dana is. It sounded like, from what he was saying to Ariel, that Hunter Campbell was a bit more empathetic to his situation. It's like, you're young, there'll be lots of chances. But I mean, what are you supposed to do when you've caught the crosshairs of Dana White and he's your employer? It's probably best to just be like, yeah, you know what? I'm going to fight my way back and show a can-do attitude, and show an attitude of it's inevitable that you're going to get to the title because you're willing to fight the best in the division, and you're going to beat the best in the division because you're better than them. I think in the heat of the moment, in the aftermath, that's the approach that you take. I think cooler heads will probably prevail, and we will see him fight for the title next. But let's just take it chill. Whether it's right or wrong, you need to be able to just, see the lay of the land, read the room, and be like, okay, I'm going to take it on the chin here. I'm going to give a positive attitude, and then we'll have a serious conversation when maybe a month from now, when things have calmed down.
Should he be next on it?
I mean, I don't know who the next contender is.
Charles Oliveira, they're saying, will be the
right. Who Islam's already smoked. No, but I don't think, like, it's not a super compelling fight to me. Like, I thought it was going to be competitive the first time. I was really excited about it the first time, and I don't think he's like. So what has he done? He's beat Chandler again. He lost to Tsarukyan. Like, it's not like he's sprinting through the division. I mean, look, it's not exactly the most packed up division either, and Islam is so dominant. But yeah, I'm not enamored with it. I think. I mean, unless they wanted to let Ilya come up and they want to let Ilya go for the second belt, I think Tsarukyan's got to be the next one.
Yeah, there's all types of problems with this kind of champions moving up, I feel. It kind of sacrifices a division to some degree. Like, as bad as they're trying to make Arman feel about this, I feel like he will have felt like, this situation occurred. I had to withdraw. I wouldn't have been at my best. Like, back pain. You're suffering with a back injury before you fight Islam Makhachev. What? Like, I mean, come on. You're not going to be doing yourself any favors.
Tom Aspinall fought through the exact same thing, right? Daniel Cormier, I think. I mean, heavyweights tend to. Just if you're bigger.
So you're on Dana's side here, is what you're saying, Donagh. He could have fought. It's a joke that he didn't fight.
I don't think it's a joke that he didn't fight. I think. I think that, look. Generally, I know these are mad examples, but like, just in Irish MMA, right? Like, Conor fought through some bad injuries to fight Chad Mendes, to fight Khabib. Look, Ian Gary fought through a pretty bad injury in his Cage Warriors title fight. And then, at the top level, you mentioned Tom Aspinall. But Daniel Cormier fought through a pretty bad injury, I think, against Derek Lewis, I want to say, but maybe Stipe the second time. And I think, look, someone not from Arman's background maybe does fight in that situation. But of course, the fighter first answer is to say that Dana's wrong, Dana's bad, and he shouldn't have done that. And look, I thought Moicano was a lot more fun anyway. So I thought it was class when Moicano got slotted in. And, I think it's great.
The production team certainly didn't love that, I imagine. The 11th hour switch, and then with all the graphics in the Intuit Dome. But one thing that Moicano has underlined on his previous appearance on Ariel's show this week is a disdain for Paddy Pimblett, which we were all quite aware of. But Andy, isn't that the fight to make? With Paddy Pimblett and Moicano at this stage. Obviously, Paddy had the video come out. Moicano's reacting to that. The video with him and Ireland's Dennis Frimpong, of course, that was having a gym battle, a real throwback to the Gracie heydays of the 90s. But I think that is a huge fight because of what Moicano has become and what Paddy is. In the UK, you're putting him in against Moicano, who's going to talk a lot of shit, who is very good on the ground. I think like a lot of the conversations was, they're putting Paddy in squash matches. Like once he gets this guy on the ground, it's over. Granted, Moicano had a pretty emphatic loss to Islam on the ground, but he is a very, very good jiu-jitsu player. And I just think it's a fight that the fan base are crying out for.
Yeah, I mean, also, call Paddy out these days online, and it sounds like you do get a fight, as you mentioned about old Dennis Frimpong there. So it's a tactic that could work here for Moicano. I mean, yeah, I'd love to see it. I think that it's a step up in the right direction. Like for Paddy, I especially given Moicano's kind of rise to fame over the past couple of years with the personality that he's now shown. I think it's a great fight. I think, as you mentioned, Paddy, when people think of Paddy, they think of his jiu-jitsu. Well, it's a great test against Moicano. And look, they've been going back and forth for a while now. So, like, why not? I mean, like, to be honest, with Paddy, there's plenty of fights. Like, it doesn't have to be Moicano. Like, you look at a Michael Chandler, you look at a Beneil Dariush, and Mateus Gamrot, Dan Hooker would be a great fight. It really doesn't matter which opponent you put Paddy in there with right now. But yeah, I would watch the shit out of a Moicano fight for him. I don't think it necessarily matters. I think fans specifically want to see him get that step up. Obviously, he smoked Bobby Green in there in Manchester. And I think that, let's just see him against a top 10 guy now. He's ranked 12th in the world. Moicano's currently ranked 10th. Why not? Let's go for it. And the shit talk in that one's going to be amazing as well.
It'd be so good. I mean, they should actually charge money for that press conference. Like, that would be absolutely fantastic. I would absolutely love that. From lightweight to bantamweight, we had a discussion after Merab's win over Umar, brother of Usman, which we have highlighted at the top of the show. Could he be carrying that solitary loss into this fight week with Paul Hughes? But immediately the conversation when Merab wins is who's next. Everyone's like, Sean O'Malley's available. You can slot him in there, immediate rematch. But we have had a bit of an option put out there by Mr. Corey Sandhagen. I believe we have a video of it there. Mr. Sandhagen not too keen on Merab's idea. And he, in fact, wants a go at Mr. O'Malley. So,
hey, let's be real. O'Malley has no business fighting Merab for an immediate rematch. He got beat up in the first fight. He's going to get beat up in the second fight. No one wants to see that fight. I'm not booked yet. I want to fight. I am so damn bored. I'll even give this fool as much time as he wants, the way that Aljamain gave him as much time as he wants. Just UFC. Make the fight that the fans want to see, which is me and O'Malley. Make it happen soon. I'm so fucking bored.
I love Corey Sandhagen, man. Oh my god! I just want to say the lengths that you have to go to push Sandhagen to making a video like this. Like, he is not this guy, and he's coming out and calling him out. Look, he makes some valid points at the start there. We talked about it earlier in the week. Like, if O'Malley fights Merab again, and Merab continues to win, like Merab looks fantastic at the moment, as he did against Umar at 311. But if O'Malley loses again, he's put himself behind the 8 ball in terms of future title fights. Joseph Benavidez, all these guys, Robert Whittaker when Stylebender was there. We see this situation an awful lot. Is there an argument for Sandhagen v O'Malley instead of Merab's rematch with O'Malley done it?
Yeah, no, I think what would be more compelling if you were going to do another fight and leave Merab on the sidelines for a bit would probably be the Peter Yan and Sean O'Malley rematch. I think that would probably be one that makes more sense. I mean, like a lot of people think Petr Yan won that first fight, and I would probably be one of those people. And I think it was super competitive. I think that's the fight more interesting. And then also the winner of that matchup. I mean, they've both had good, solid fights with Merab. I mean, I know that Merab, they say like he did dominate Sean O'Malley, but at the same time, with the way MMA fights are judged and scored, I mean, O'Malley was coming on late, and I don't agree with O'Malley's wild argument that he somehow won 3 rounds of that fight. But I found
the Sugar Sean Commission said they did that. No? Didn't they rule that?
The Sugar Sean Commission said he won all 5, 10, 8. But
he's still undefeated according to that commission.
Yeah, exactly. So no, I thought it was an interesting. It was interesting, but I think Sandhagen is quite a bit down the queue as far as I'm concerned, and would need probably a big win to even be in the Sean O'Malley discussion. So I think I'd rather see O'Malley and Yan battle it out once more, and then we can do the winner against Merab in a rematch.
Yeah, it's
not that I fancy any of them against Merab, by the way.
Yeah, he's a nightmare. Do you I mean, John Wood made a case for me before that fight against Umar that they're dying for this, like one of these Nurmagomedovs to take the mantle left by Khabib, but he's like, what if Merab's the new Khabib? And like the more you saw the reaction to him winning that fight, and it's nearly like it plays out like a Shakespearean play. He's so like the first 2 rounds go completely against him, and now you're like, all you need to do is beat this undefeated fighter for the next 3 rounds and you'll win the fight. And he's like, yeah, no problem. And he goes and does it. So it's like this emotional journey he's bringing the crowd with him on. And I think his stock couldn't be higher after that one.
I think what's hilarious is, how about this? He lost to Ricky Bandejas. How wild is that?
Only the greats lose to Ricky Bandejas.
Oh yeah, I think James Gallagher actually, maybe, they got these new contracts, and I don't know if he's going to fight PFL. Maybe we do, it would be Merab versus Gallagher, but yeah, maybe you get James Gallagher over there. He could fight for the bantamweight belt.
Georgia v. Ireland 1. It's the one everybody's been waiting for.
Yeah, it's a super hot rivalry. After Sean O'Malley represented Ireland the last time, I think that's what we need to see. But no, I think 2 Ricky Bandejas victims. Maybe Ricky Bandejas gets the rematch. How about that?
He's back. Yeah, he was actually
back, baby.
I really thought Bandejas could have a great career.
I met Patchy Mix.
Yeah, it didn't go the way I expected it to. What I wanted to ask you guys is, obviously we talked a lot about PFL today. The lads talked about BKFC a lot yesterday. We've seen Connor's amazing call to arms to the BKFC fighters last night. Fantastic stuff. There's also the GFL draft this weekend, lads. So,
yeah.
I mean, that's the one, right? That's the one we've all been waiting for. What I wanted to ask is, if you had to rank them, Andy, in terms of what you are most looking forward to, 1 being the one you want to watch the most, 3 being the one that you want to watch the least, where are you going with this?
We're talking between BKFC and GFL.
BKFC and GFL. 1 to 3.
PFL way.
You buried the lead, mate. You should have gone 3-2-1. It would have been way more exciting for the audience.
No,
hanging on to your every word.
No. PFL's way ahead. I mean, it's so different. Like I do want to see Eddie Alvarez throw down in Philly with no gloves on. Like that's just going to be violent. But it's a very different kind of wanting to see. It's like a slow car crash. It's like the carnival has come to town and there's this freak show happening, and that is this GFL draft where they have 20,000 fighters ready to go, lined up, all contracted, yet multiple promotions coming out and disputing these contracts and perhaps threatening legal action. We have fighters who are competing in different weight classes. Apparently, Norman Park has a nickname of Hot Chocolate now. That I've never heard of that one before.
Yeah, that's from Fame MMA.
Did they do the Danny Roberts one?
Hang on, is Norman Park in the GFL draft?
Oh yeah, baby.
What?
Oh yes.
Oh God,
Tom Egan is in it as well.
You know that you're in the PFL draft also, Petesy, right? Donagh got the contract yesterday. I'm still waiting on mine.
I'm fighting I want to see Castro.
Yeah. I mean, like, this GFL draft is going to be interesting, let me tell you. But like, what does it mean? No one knows. Will it ever happen? Probably not. And that's about as optimistic as I can be right now. So I kind of want to see that. So you know what? That's number 2.
GFL's number 2, and then BKFC number 3.
Yeah. I'll cash that on Sunday.
Okay, that's a deranged take.
Hang on, we're really looking forward to Donnagh's take, because Donnagh's traveled to all over the world to watch BKFC. He's a massive BKFC fan. Marbella, I believe, you and Dizzy Rascal there. So tell me, what's it going to be?
Okay, so I've been to 2 BKFCs, Albuquerque, New Mexico 2023, for Bryce Hall versus G Perez, remember?
How could we forget?
How could you forget? And then I would have traveled to Philadelphia for this probably, if I weren't in Dubai. But I was at Marbella, Ben the Bane Davis versus Oscar Willis. There was also a main event. I couldn't tell you what it was. And I think
I genuinely couldn't tell you what the main event was of that card.
No, Austin Trout fought someone. So yeah, I think the GFL drafts could be so funny. If they were all in person, it would be better. Like if you could see Dylan Dennis's live reaction to not getting drafted by any team, that would be very
in the draft.
Like
Dylan Dennis is in the draft.
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. At least he's been announced as being in the draft. He's posted about it.
Tony Ferguson as well.
Tony Ferguson is in there. Like I said, Tom Egan is in there. So I think it's going to be a really fascinating thing. I mean, look, it's going to be hilarious. I won't be staying up till what time is it? 8 p.m.
1 a.m.
1 a.m. Irish time. So that's 5 a.m. Dubai.
Well,
so
constitutionally, we may, if our president dictates, we may have to watch it. You never know.
BKFC, I'll probably have to stay up and work first, so I'll do that. But yeah, not staying up for the GFL. So I guess in at number 3 is GFL, but I'm really excited about it nonetheless. In at number 2, BKFC. Also, Joey DeWecco on that BKFC card, the guy who allegedly was the beginning of the end for Anthony Joshua's career in that sparring session. And then in the main event on PFL, you got Paul Hughes and Usman Nurmagomedov. So yeah, I got PFL, got to be number 1. Don't call me a shill for that, but it's got to be number 1. It's a huge event. So yeah, PFL number 1, BKFC 2, and number 3 GFL draft. But that's 3 events I'm really excited for.
And 3 different moods you can take into them as well, which I like. You know, GFL is like our version of watching Keeping Up with the Kardashians or something at this stage. Like it's like, as you said, Andy, like the stories about these guys who are contracted to different organizations commenting under GFL's post, announcing them as being in the draft, being like, please remove this. I'm still contracted to the PFL. Unbelievable. I'm going to watch all of them. Most excited for Paul, of course, but it's a busy all week in combat sports despite the UFC not being here. Like there's lots to feast on in terms of entertainment.
Oh yeah.
So lads, may their knuckles become knives, as they say, as we commonly say in Ireland.
Gloves off, baby, gloves off.
That's it, gloves off. Their knuckles are now knives. Anyway, lads, that is all that we have today. Thank you to Andy. I am sorry for muting my mic at one stage, but I'm very happy to see you two guys being very cordial with each other. This could have burst out. Like you think Dubai scenes are bad. These two could go off with each other. And we have to do it in different locations in case they get physical. It's absolutely mental. But Andy Stevenson of Severe MMA and the L Triangle podcast, Donagh Corby of Bloody Elbow, thank you so much for joining us. Thank you to
BloodyElbow.com. Biggest website in MMA, baby.
Donagh, we forgot to turn on Petesy for this one.
We're running out of time now. So thank you very much.
10 more minutes.
Thank you to Oscar, the producer,
everybody.
To Andy
BloodyElbow.com.
for taking Jordan's place. We love you so much. Enjoy the fights. Mwah.